A two-time track champion on the oval at Raceway Park. Lonnie Breedlove, this is a long way from the oval, so can you tell us what type of experience you can draw from when you move to the figure-8 course?
Tonight, all I'm going to do is just set a pace and try to stay out of trouble the first hour, and then last 2 hours just hopefully mechanically while we finish and hang in there.
Stock cars are supposed to look like stock cars, right? But you have what I would call a super modified that really does not look like a stock car at all. Tell us about your race car.
I found it's easier to buy the aluminum and form the bodies myself than to buy a professional body. It's about half price. So I just went on and formed my own body and made it look like a East Coast modified.
And you were laughing. You said it was, what, a 1982 Buick Regal or something like that?
They told
Fast for most anything.
They told me I had to name it something, so I named it an 82 Regal because nobody will know what that's going to look like.
Is this your first figure-8, the 3-hour national?
This is my first 3-hour race. This will be my 4th figure-8 I've ever run in.
Can you bring us up to date on what you thought the first time out after all those years on the oval when you didn't have to turn to the right and you didn't have that crossover to worry about? What went through your mind the first time through that crossover?
I figured some of the guys I race with at Raceway Park, they're doing it, and I figured I run with them at Raceway Park, so if they're doing it, I can do it. So that's why I decided to do it. They're paying good money, so give it a shot.
Right now in the start, you have some real heavy hitters up in front of you.
Yeah, we're 4th fast. It's going to be, like I said, first hour, whoever stays out of trouble, and then from the next 2 hours will be mechanical.
Is it your thought to let somebody else set the pace early and just wait for the first hour or two to pass by?
That's what I'm planning on doing, yeah.
Okay, the big number 0, not a fancy paint job really because it's all aluminum, but a big number 0, Lonnie Breedlove, good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
The green flag flutters one more time, and jumping out in front where he has been most of this race, Kenny St. John in number 1 takes over. Wayne Arnold continues to run in second position as the Corvettes tear away from the rest of the pack and immediately begin to put distance between themselves and, most significantly, the third-place driver of Chuck Hall, the driver from Toledo, Ohio, a 2-time national figure-8 champion at Islip, New York, runs third here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. He has now lost the lap to the 2 leading Corvettes. Wayne Arnold, incidentally, has a broken valve spring on that race car. You won't see nearly the acceleration in the throttle pedal in that number 12 race car as we've seen in the early parts of this racetrack. He'll try and stay on the course as long as he possibly can, and right now, I'll tell you, he's looking pretty strong as he continues to run in second position. We've got debris and a lot of moisture on the racetrack right in front of the flagman, Kyle Hall, which is turn number 1 here on the course. The yellow flag was out momentarily. Now we're green once again.
Wayne Arnold not showing really the effects of that broken valve spring at this point in time. Larry, obviously that was the reason for the smoke that he was showing. Still running strongly on the racetrack, but it could pose some serious problem for car number 12 later on. A lot of racing in front of him, nearly 2.5 hours yet to go. You've got to suspect before this thing is over that number 12, unless something miraculous happens, is not going to be able to hang in there. We have not seen the return of car number 4, Jack Dandy, I don't believe. At this point, he was hoping for 15 or 20 minutes to get that fuel tank replaced and repaired, and we as yet have not seen him back on the racing surface. Arnold back around St. John, so those 2 machines, as they've done all season long, continuing to battle, and Luby Allen nearly collides with number 4, Bill Fraser. Allen now gets together with 54, Bob Stute. Bob will go around Luby now and continue to run. We haven't mentioned 54 Bob Stute. I've got to suspect that he's near the front, and Gary Gross slides sideways through the crossover. He was one of our front runners in the early going of this race. Continues on his way. No serious damage done to his automobile, but it was a close call as your 2 leaders dash through the crossover between Chuck Hall and Gary Early.
Robin regards the Stute. Unofficially, he is in 5th position in the race at this point. He's been on the racetrack since the green flag. He started in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14th position in this event. He's been out there all night without incident, and he has worked himself up certainly into the top 5, unofficially into number 5 position. Bob Stoops, a man who came down from Dearborn Heights. He was second in this race a year ago. His experience is beginning to show through.
That very same Bob Stoops just started into the pit area, Larry. Bob Stoops goes off the racetrack and into the pit. You see some people scurrying around west into the pit area. I believe that was for Bob Stoops' automobile. That's where he was pitted earlier in the evening. I don't know what the problem is, but it has to be something serious or Bob would not pull off the track at this point in the race. Wayne Arnold now building his lead over Kenny St. John. I wonder whether or not St. John is aware of the problems that Wayne is having.
St. John has been having some trouble traversing the X in the middle of the racetrack. At the crossover, Arnold has been getting just the right brakes, or maybe he's making the right brakes, Rob, I don't know. But at any case, at this point, Arnold has been a better traffic driver than St. John over the last 5 minutes.
Well, Ron Sleepy Tripp, a name familiar to all open-wheel racing fans, came out one night to the Speedrome to watch an outlaw stock car figure-8 race. And he intoned on that particular evening that he had never seen anybody with any better reflexes or true innate driving skills than Wayne Arnold. And coming from a fellow like Sleepy Tripp, quite a compliment. And again, St. John forced to slow down in the crossover. He just doesn't seem to be able to be as slick and as smooth and timing his moves through the crossover as does Wayne Arnold. Again, we could surmise and speculate that maybe he realizes that Arnold is having problems with car number 12.
Well, St. John has also built himself a reputation of being one of the most aggressive kind of race drivers that there is, be it an oval race or a figure-8 race, and he just hasn't been taking those kinds of chances that people are accustomed to seeing him take tonight. Reason being, I don't know, maybe he's saving something for the final hour. Again, we're going to go 3 hours, and remember, we have not completed even 1 hour of this race as of yet.
Kenny St. John was the 1980 Pro Stock champion here at the Speedrome, and he had almost as good a year as Wayne Arnold did this season. A lot of people have speculated, Larry, that perhaps it hurt Kenny that he wasn't competing here as much as he did in 1981. It's got to give a guy like a Wayne Arnold an edge when he's here every racing night of the season. And he's showing that here tonight. St. John was a master of this track, and near the end of this racing season, became one once again in this outlaw stock car. But you still got to give the edge to the guy who spent more laps on this racetrack in 1981. Unofficially, your standings now at lap 104, the time of our last red flag 15 laps ago. Your leader, car number 12, Wayne Arnold. Second, Kenny St. John, car number 1. Both drivers had completed an equal number of laps. 1 lap down was car number 5, Chuck Hall. 4 laps down was car number 54, Bob Stoops. We've not seen the return of car number 54 since he went into the pit area about 6 laps ago. Running 5th was car number 0, Lonnie Breedlove, 4 laps back. Ray Bray in PH5 was 6th, 5 laps down. 7th was car number 7, Jim Tunney, 8 laps down, or 6 laps down rather. 8th was car number 32, Gary Gross, who was 8 laps down, as was car number 2, Donnie Utterback. And 10th was number 779, Ray Gaddis, who had completed 94 laps, or 10 laps behind your leader.
Mike Klein has now moved to the Speedway, another Indianapolis driver. In a 1969 metallic blue Camaro, Mike Klein joins the race to once again attempt to bring this field up to 24. Remember the unusual rules here for this event, that as soon as one of the competitors on the racetrack pulls off and is off for any length of time at all, then another car among those non-qualifiers, at least non-qualifiers from the initial 24 fastest, is given the privilege to come onto the racetrack. We have added some 12 additional cars now to this field since the green flag initially fell back about an hour ago at the start of this race. Ray Bray, who has since come back out onto the racetrack, exited with ignition problems, you remember, and one of the competitors has lost the wheel. The car coming to a halt near the center of the racetrack as the wheel, the axle looks like has come out, continues to tilt around in turn number 2. No, it's not an axle, it's just the wheel came off the race car, perhaps just torn off the rim as it traversed the turns here at the Speedrome.
That was car number 98X, Cecil Carr, who had qualified 24th in our starting field. Cecil back into the pit area, but that wheel sitting in a precarious position on the racetrack. In fact, it could pose some problems for drivers later on as they come very, very close to that wheel moving off that turn. So far, everybody sliding safely by, and maybe with the velocity carrying them out past it, it might not be a major problem. They've all gone by it once, realized that it's sitting there, and maybe it won't create any serious problems from here on. Richard Schaefer in car number 21 has sat there since, in fact, right after the red flag that we experienced in lap 104. So for 24 laps, Richard Schaefer's been sitting in the infield.
Well, Ray Bray is back out onto the racetrack. A guy who was high as fourth in this race. He had ignition problems, which he could not get, which they rather did solve. And one of the competitors, it's Chuck Hall, drives into the wheel, which has been picked up by another competitor. And Hall went right over the top of that wheel, went way up in the air, was launched right off the center of the racetrack like a Saturn rocket blasting off from the infield. Hall went way up in the air, but he goes back to racing speed. So apparently, it did not damage that race car.
Well, because of that, the red comes out once again on lap number 130, and that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen on the racetrack. Chuck Hall doing a literal wheelie in car number 5, and can you imagine the force on the front end of that machine and on Chuck himself?
We're under green again, and once again Arnold and St. John take off. Dennis Pace was driving Chuck Hall's car when it went over the tire, so Chuck Hall, the man who started this race in the number 5 race car, was not piloting it when the car had its problems. Dennis Pace, also from the Detroit area, driving Chuck Hall's car. Now we find out when it had the incident.
Luby Allen spinning again in car number A60. Now Chuck Hall's number 5 back onto the racetrack. We've been told that it does have a broken A-frame. Not sure whether or not that has been repaired. I kind of doubt it in that short period of time. Maybe they decided to go ahead and compete with it like that, at least for the time being, and hope for another red flag. Kenny St. John now alongside and around Wayne Arnold, so yet another lead change. Lap number 131, it's Kenny St. John back out in front with Wayne Arnold second. Chuck Hall's number 5, and it looks like that's Chuck Hall back in car number 5. Appears to be running fairly strongly, despite the fact that we've been told he suffered a broken A-frame. Car number 5 looking like it's running strong, and Wayne Arnold continuing to show smoke in car number 12. Well, I'm not sure whether or not that valve spring should be causing him any major problems. Right now, it doesn't appear to be doing so, as Arnold continues to set the pace, with St. John now falling safely back into second position once again.
Bob Cloud in car number 43X has returned to the pits, the yellow and white number 43. We had a couple of them entered here. Donnie Garrigus, one of the local regulars and local favorites, was among our fastest 24 qualifiers. Garrigus continues on the racetrack. Cloud has returned to the pits, at least momentarily. Again, remember, he'll have an opportunity to come back out again if he so chooses.
We've now had it confirmed from the pit area from Gary Lee. Dennis Pace is still driving car number 5. So despite having that thrill of a lifetime, if that's how you'd like to refer to it, Dennis Pace continuing to do the driving in car number 5.
And the 4 cars that have run near the front of this race, either on the racetrack at speed or at least on the scoring ledger all night long, the cars of St. John, Arnold, Hall, and the PH5 of Bray are there once again running together. Certainly the 4 fastest cars in the racetrack, although right now Gary Early, the Michigan driver, seemingly able to keep pace with the 4 of them, but Arnold and St. John, to the best of our knowledge, continue. We've had a collision at the crossover.
Jim Tunney hitting car number 6, Jack Dawsey, very hard. Heavy damage sustained to the front of car number 7. Jim Tunney getting into Jack Dawsey in number 6. Tunney's car obviously is not going to go anyplace. It's been shortened about a foot in the front of that automobile. Jack Dawsey still sitting out in the racing groove. if Jack can move off the racetrack, we may continue to run under the yellow. Carl Hall, I can see now, readying the red flag, as it doesn't look like Dossie able to move. And Mike St. John, who was trying to go through the crossover, as he got together with another machine, had to turn in opposite direction. Again, it looks like we've had a fuel tank or something, some liquid container that slid up alongside the concrete wall along the main straightaway. Liquid pouring off the racetrack or down the racetrack from that wall area. Jim Tunney now climbing out of his car. Doesn't appear to be injured seriously, but that's got to be quite a jolt to Jim. He really tagged Jack Dossie Sr. Now Jack Dossie Jr., the driver of car number 52, has pulled up and stopped next to his dad, hopefully to lend some assistance there.
Well, a very interesting couple of moments also for young Mike St. John in the white-blue trim number 1M. St. John actually changed the course that he was on. He was headed toward the south side of the racetrack, and he found himself in a very dangerous situation at the crossover. Actually made a 180-degree turn and headed toward the north end of the racetrack. And as he headed toward the north end, then he changed his mind, started to head back south again, and along came the black number 4 car of Bill Frazier, a guy who finished 5th here a year ago. And Frazier really got on the binders and just barely missed St. John. While all that was going on, somehow a fuel tank from somebody ended up against the wall on the oval's front stretch.
Well, the evening ends in big disappointment for Jim Tunney, the driver of car number 7. He built the machine from the ground up himself. Jim now walking off the racetrack. I'm sure you can hear you race fans' applause. Jim was running in 4th position at the last red flag at 121 laps, and we anticipate that he probably was in 4th or maybe even better. The machines ahead of him, of course, Arnold, St. John, and number 5, Chuck Hall. But that was at the prior red flag, and since that point in time, Chuck Hall's machine, with Dennis Pace doing the driving, had fallen yet several more laps down. At 129 laps, your leader was Kenny St. John with Wayne Arnold second. Both machines had completed 129 circuits. Once again, with a drop of the green, Kenny St. John begins to move in car number 1. Wayne Arnold definitely not running as fast as he was early in the race, but you don't want to count him out. If number 12 continues to run, Arnold is certainly capable of putting it out in front. St. John setting the pace. Arnold continues to be second on the lead lap. And from there, well, who knows? I'm not sure at this point, Larry, who's running in 3rd position. Unofficially, we'd say that it's probably still Chuck Hall. Now we're getting confirmation at that red flag at 137 laps. It was still Chuck Hall. 3rd, 3 laps down to your leaders. 8 laps down in 4th position, car number 0, Lonnie Breedlove. 9 down, car number 7, Jim Tunney. And that will do it for Tunney, of course, with 128 laps complete. That'll be his racing evening. Riding 6th was car number 2, Donnie Utterback. He was 11 laps back. 7th was 779. That, of course, Ray Gaddis, of whom we were just speaking, with 124. He was 13 laps down. 14 down was car number 32 in 8th position, Gary Gross. 9th was car number 09, Gary Early, with 122 laps. And Mike St. John 10th in car number 1M with 119, some 18 laps behind your leader.
In almost all other forms of racing, the drivers have quite a number of opportunities on the racetrack to communicate with their crews. In a lot of professional type racing, of course, there are two-way radios now installed in the race cars. Stock car racing and Indianapolis type car racing, just to name a couple. In most forms of oval track racing, the drivers at least have an opportunity at one point on the racetrack to look up and get signals from the crews. But here at the Indianapolis Speedrome on a figure-8 race, there's absolutely no time anywhere around this racetrack for a driver to have any form of communication whatsoever with anybody else. It's a lonely job out there driving a figure-8 course on an oval that is designed to be 1/5 of a mile in length. The figure-8 course itself is about 1/3 of a mile. but you're in a corner or headed toward that crossover every second of the time that you're out there. Just as you successfully traverse that corner and try to maneuver your way around the drivers that are around you, then you're at the apex of that turn, or rather the end of that turn, and the nose of your race car is pointed toward the center of the infield. And if you're lucky, there's not somebody on the other side of the racetrack headed for the same spot that you are. So constant attention demanded here on a figure-8 course. No time to relax and no time to really communicate with other people and find out what's going on.
A couple of fresh drivers have now been added to the racing surface. Ernie Harson in car number 21, Bruce McFall in 93. So they're fresh, but despite the fact that we've had a bunch of cars drop out of this race in relatively early going, we see that a couple of guys have been added to the racetrack, and we've still, Larry, got a full racetrack of automobiles.
Well, a guy who is really beginning to pick up some steam now again, Rob, is Lonnie Breedlove. Breedlove in that radically designed aerodynamic machine. It's radically designed for this type of racing. Lost quite a number of laps in the pit area earlier because they had some problems with the race car. Breedlove had dropped 11 laps down to the two leaders, St. John and Arnold, but he has now moved back up into correction on the Breedlove. Breedlove had lost 8 laps down. He had moved back up to 5th position on the racetrack, and Arnold right now appears to be one of the fastest cars in the speedway. He's really barreling around the turns and lead-footing it through the crossover.
And again, Kenny St. John back out in front as these two drivers continue to jockey for position. It was Arnold for several laps. Now it's St. John back out in front. And they continue to dice with one another. Watch Kenny St. John making the move through the crossover. That time his strategy was the wrong one, and Wayne Arnold regains the front-running position in car number 12.
Rob, I'll tell you, sometimes there just isn't anything more that you can do about it if the traffic is too heavy. Look at the crossover right now. They were 5 abreast at one point, coming from the south toward the north and going from the north toward the south. Well, the blue coats, they were 2 abreast that time through.
Watch your leaders in the crossover. 2 cars, Gary Early and Jack Dawsey, choosing to turn at right angles to the direction in which they were traveling. And that's an interesting bit of strategy, Larry. If it just looks like you can't avoid a collision in the crossover, you turn the opposite direction and begin to flow with the traffic. And that's exactly what Jack Dawsey Jr. and Gary Early did that time through. Early was able to regain control of his machine and head the right direction. But Jack Dawsey, in essence, lost a half lap as he continued to go with the flow of traffic.
That is an interesting way of blending, and maybe something that could have been used by a couple of competitors in May of this year, if you think about it.
Closing in now on 1 hour of racing in this event. A little over 55 minutes, closing in on 56 in fact. 155 laps completed at this point in the race. Really incredible that 2 machines could be on the lead lap this far into an event of this type. That's the way it is. The 2 guys who dominated outlaw stock car racing at the Speedrome all year long, Wayne Arnold and Kenny St. John, setting the pace. A couple of the Speedrome's regular pro stock drivers have continued to just drive smoothly and unobtrusively around the racetrack. They would include car number 2, Donnie Utterback, with the last red flag, was running in 6th position. Remember, that's Wayne Arnold's pro stock automobile. Also, Bill Fraser in car number 4. Now, he had a problem early, but while he's been on the track, Bill Fraser has run very strongly in his Camaro. Also running a very smooth and strong race is car number 32, Gary Gross, and I don't believe Gary's had any major problems at this point in the competition. Another driver doing a good job, Mike St. John in the white car number 1, younger brother of Kenny St. John. Despite the fact that he's got a piece of equipment not capable of running out in front, Mike doing a creditable job in his automobile.
Rob, you're right. In addition to St. John and Arnold, the other three people who have had a completely uneventful race so far are Utterback, Gaddis, and Gross. Now, we say uneventful in the case of Gaddis. Gaddis lost a couple of laps when his car failed to restart after one of the red flags. But other than that, Gaddis has had a clean slate all night long, along with Gross, Utterback, and those two leaders, Arnold and St. John. Is there any chinks in the armor of Arnold and St. John? It certainly doesn't look like it at this point. Arnold and St. John continue to dominate as Rich Fenwick in car number 40 in a 1970 Nova, the first Nova race car to be in this race tonight, comes onto the field as a replacement competitor for one of those who has dropped out.
Ernie Harson, 21X, has spun in the south end of the racetrack and now sits the opposite direction facing traffic. Ernie trying to get the engine restarted in that car. Obviously, if he can't, position that he's sitting in, we could see another red flag. Let's hope Ernie gets the machine restarted, and the red does come out once again. Watch the machines as they parade into the pit area one more time on lap number 162.
If that's a parade, Craig Breedlove is a slow driver. I'll tell you, that is one of the fastest parades. It's almost like an explosion heading for that bullpen area, or the pit area, if you will, when the red flag flies. Everybody with a lot of work to do, topping off the fuel tank. Some of the people probably wanting to change rubber on the front end, perhaps the rear end assemblies of these race cars. Some of the top contenders maybe even making some chassis adjustments. But boy, I tell you, you can sure tell they're in a big hurry to get back.
Quick green flag, and we're back to racing with only 9 cars on the track. Watch them file back out onto the racing surface. Gary Lee, we certainly appreciate your help and assistance, your insight down in the pit area. Once that red flag falls, Gary goes to work in a frenzy to get all the information he possibly can for us.
Well, Rob, I'll tell you, a very interesting turn of events as a lot of the competitors caught unprepared when the most recent green flag flew after our 9th red flag. And one of those people who had begun to really make some ground up was Lonnie Breedlove. And Breedlove was stuck in the pits when the green flag came back out. Breedlove now since returned to the racetrack, but he was 8 laps down to the 2 leaders. He had just unlapped himself, so he had moved himself into a position where he was 7 laps down, with still 2 hours of racing to go. But Breedlove lost that lap that he worked so hard to pick up because he just wasn't ready to come out of the starting blocks when the race restarted. We only had about 10 or 11 cars in the racetrack when the race restarted. We still don't have a full contingent of 24 out there. We've been green for about 3 laps.
Sure, we'll wait another minute or so for those that were in the pit area at the time of the red to move back out onto the racetrack, and then additional cars will be added. Coming up on the 1 hour mark, just 10 seconds from right now, we'll reach 1 hour. Let's see how many laps your leaders will have completed at that point in the race. It's Wayne Arnold now back out in front. Kenny St. John second. 1 hour complete. 166 laps down for your leaders. At that pace, they'll complete just about 500 laps over the 3 hours. That means the second half hour a bit slower than the first one. Racetrack obviously a little bit more slippery, and I'm sure they're going to have to slow down just a bit. The red flags will certainly help. A driver, Larry, if he has several opportunities to rest in the pit area, won't have to pace himself physically, hopefully out on the racing surface itself. They can run full bore and hope for another flag and another opportunity to rest.
And there is incentive to drive as hard as you possibly can during every green flag, because the winner's purse here is $4,000 or $10 per completed lap. So, should a competitor be able to finish 500 laps, that winning purse, instead of being just $4,000, balloons up to $5,000. So there certainly is an awful lot of encouragement to go as fast as you can every time that you're out there under a green flag condition.
Kenny St. John and Wayne Arnold doing battle as if they were on lap number 49 of a 50-lap feature. At at the present rate that the drivers are traveling, 498 laps would be completed. Bill Fraser gets into car number 36, Mike Klein. Let's see if Fraser able to get going again. He has slowed down. Now he moves through the crossover, but those two machines got together, and it's cost Klein a flat left rear tire. So Mike will continue around the racetrack and back into the pit area to change that left rear rubber on his automobile.
Well, Bill Frazier, that is, in the black number 4. That's Black and Fraser together. A man who did quite well here a year ago in this event, finishing in the top 5, 5th to be exact in the 1980 event. He really came in as one of the guys who might well have been one of the dark horses for this race, but he's had all kinds of problems, and again he's involved in a minor skirmish, and Frazier several laps behind the front-running Arnold and St. John. It continues to be the black number 1 of Kenny St. John and the orange number 12 of Wayne Arnold.
Jack Dawsey Jr., Larry, hard into the wall in the north end of the racetrack and suffered some damage to the right front. He ran out of racetrack, got together another machine, and went hard into that concrete wall. Jack now waiting for an opportunity to move into the pit area.
Mitch Reno in car number 711 from Flat Rock, Michigan is on the racetrack, a car that has a number very close to the 771 of the Simmons family. Remember Billy Simmons, car number 771, one of the top 10 qualifiers for the event, one of the top contenders from the Detroit area, started this race but pulled out of the event very early. We expected to see him come back out. We have not seen hide nor hair of him since that time. Billy Simmons certainly not a threat to win, but he could well be back out again. We're only about a third of the way through this race. A lot of action to follow. A lot of things could transpire before the final 120 minutes of this race expire.
Now coming up on the 200 lap mark of this race. Not only is the fatigue telling on race drivers, it's got to be plaguing some of the equipment as well. You not only have to avoid other race cars, but you have to take care of your racing equipment. You have to have it properly prepared for the race, and that's what many of these drivers had said was their key concern coming in tonight, just making sure that they had checked, double-checked, and triple-checked all of their equipment. Flat left front tire now on car number 5, Chuck Hall. He's slowed down dramatically. Car number 5 with a flat left front tire, and he'll have to go into the pit area to change that left front racing rubber. Chuck Hall now has gone back into the pit area in car number 5. So we'll see just how long it takes him to rejoin the race.
We understand that Dennis Pace continues to drive the number 5 car entered by Chuck Hall. Dennis Pace continues to drive that, so Pace is the one who has the flat tire and goes back to the pit area. Rob, you know, something I want to comment on, and when you really put all this into perspective with all the red flags we've had, all the confusion, all of the near misses at the crossover, you really got to take your hats off to Kenny St. John and Wayne Arnold. Neither one of them has had anything close to a major incident this entire race, and they have been close to one another. They're concentrating on each other. That's pretty obvious. Neither one letting the other one get out of sight. They've done a magnificent job staying out of trouble, and it really is amazing when you think that everybody else in that starting lineup, with the exception of perhaps Utterback and Gross, have had some type of difficulty. These guys not only been the fastest cars, they've been out there all night with no trouble whatsoever.
And when you think that in 185 laps, Larry, they've made 370 trips through the crossover. Another machine has lost a wheel. It's car number 2, Donnie Utterback, has lost a wheel, and he'll now hustle back into the pit area. But as you were talking about those two drivers, it is truly incredible when you consider how many times they've had to negotiate around other machines in the crossover.
Utterback, we had just commented that he had run a race without incident, was as high as in 5th position, despite the fact that he was many laps down to the 2 leaders. Utterback sands the right front tire, returns to the pits, He's pitting under green. That's going to cost him obviously considerably more laps, but Utterback, we expect for him to look for him to be back out shortly.
Probably the closest either of our leaders has come to anything serious was on about the third lap of the race when Kenny St. John, trying to time a maneuver through the crossover, got briefly together with number 6 Jack Dawsey Sr., who since has departed from this race. But after he got calmed down and settled down just a bit, no problems have plagued either one of our front runners. Wayne Arnold has had some mechanical difficulties, first experiencing a cracked distributor cap, then talking about a broken valve spring, but you sure couldn't tell it. Car number 12 continues to run out in front. At 163 laps, the time of our last red flag, it was St. John and Arnold, the leaders on the same lap. Chuck Hall and Dennis Pace, co-equals, driving number 5, were 5 laps back. Lonnie Breedlove was 4th, 8 laps down to your leader. Riding 5th was car number 2, Donnie Utterback. He had 148 complete. That was 15 laps down. 779, Ray Gaddis was riding in 6th. He had completed 148 and was on the same lap with Donnie Utterback. 7th was Gary Grossen, car number 32 with 146 complete. 8th was Mike St. John in car number 1M. 9th was Dave Grayson in car number 8. And 10th, 09, Gary Early. Gary was 25 laps down to your lead cars and still managing to run in the top 10. So a real testimonial to the talents and the performance of the race cars. Car number 1, Kenny St. John, and number 12, Wayne Arnold.
Well, Arnold set a new track record, which was about 1.5 seconds faster than the old record in qualifying for this race at 17.7 rounded off. The old record was 19 seconds, and that's exactly what Arnold and St. John are running at in this race. So Arnold and St. John traversing this 1/3 mile figure-8 course at a time equal to the old track record.
Your two leaders, nearly encountering disaster, reached the crossover at the exact same time as Jack Dandy. Jack in car number 4 jumped on the binders and deferred to your two front runners, but for a minute looked like it could have been serious trouble for either St. John or Arnold, or perhaps even both. They continue to run full blast around the competition. Your leaders now in very heavy traffic continues to be Kenny St. John, at least at this point, setting the pace, with Wayne Arnold second in car number 12. Looks like a parking lot traffic jam near the crossover. Chuck Hall, one of the cars involved, with Marion Hester, Dean Griffin, Donnie Garrigus, and now Hall will continue on his way, but he'll lose yet another lap to your front runners. St. John and Arnold blazing around Jack Dandy, and now Chuck Hall to put him another lap down. Coming up on the 200th lap of this race, Kenny St. John now slowing down to time his move through the crossover. Now he blasts through, and that allows Wayne Arnold to close right in behind him once again. Bill Fraser now spinning as he nears the crossover in car number 4. I don't know whether Bill has come to a stop. I think he's just waiting for traffic to clear, and again, Jack Dandy taking a risky opportunity to go through the crossover. Wayne Arnold now has gotten back around Kenny St. John, and you could not ask for a tighter battle for the lead. They'll this time by complete lap number 200, and they'll do it side by side. Larry, incredible. 200 laps in, and your two front runners go by the start-finish line in a dead heat for that front spot.
Rob, you know, I also have to believe that they've been able to run so closely with one another that both of them have got something left. I don't think they've shown us all the speed they are capable of. And I think that without really communicating directly and plotting strategy together, I think they're both kind of playing into each other's hands. They both knew that They've got a little more horsepower than most of the other competitors, and believe it or not, I'm convinced they're definitely pacing themselves. They probably didn't anticipate that both of them would be able to go so long. Boy, they come so close together that time. They're still racing out there, even though we still suppose that they are pacing one another, but I doubt that both of them felt that the other one would be able to go so long without having some type of major difficulty.
I think one word describes what's going on between those two race drivers, and that is respect. Now, a couple of machines having trouble. Dennis Pace in car number 5, the Chuck Hall machine, back into the pit area. Now Gary Gross pulls off the racetrack, one of our front runners, car number 32, with a flat rear tire. Well, as I was saying, I think the best word to describe what's going on between Kenny St. John and Wayne Arnold is respect. They respect one another as now Dennis Pace moves back out onto the racetrack. And due to that respect, they're not going to do anything foolish, taking any unnecessary risks, but as you said earlier, just simply keeping one another in sight. Another machine has been added now to the group of contenders on the racetrack. Jimmy Cook in car number 54X. He was our 45th qualifier, and he now has been added to the field at the 206th lap. Well, those two leaders, Wayne Arnold and Kenny St. John, continuing to run right together. It doesn't seem to matter whether they're in traffic or whether they're in the clear. Those two cars tied together with a rope, it appears. Occasionally, one of them will build a quarter or a half a lap advantage, and inevitably, he'll encounter some heavy traffic that will allow the other guy to catch up. Just about as evenly matched in skill and mechanical ability as you could possibly want on the racetrack. Car number 12, Wayne Arnold, and car number 1, Kenny St. John. Dennis Pace in car number 5 was only in the pit area for a short period of time. Now he's back out on the racetrack. However, Gary Gross, who went in at the same time, was also in the top 10. Gary has not returned quite so quickly.
And Jack Dandy, who lost the gas tank in the first half hour of this event, spent about 30 minutes in the pit area replacing the gas tank. He came back out. Robbie's back in the pits again. Maybe they did not solve all of their problems in restoring the petrol supply to that race car.
Well, St. John now using heavy traffic in front of Wayne Arnold to begin to stretch his lead. It's now grown to a quarter of a lap, but we've seen this earlier. Bill Fraser back in the pits now in car number 4. We've seen this happen earlier, Larry, where one of these two machines has built a bit of an edge, and then either due to a red flag or traffic in front of the leader, the man in second has been able to close it up. So I think you'll probably see now Arnold driving just a bit harder than he did earlier, and he now almost runs out of racing room as Gary Early and Dean Griffin come very close to putting Wayne Arnold in the racetrack's retaining wall on the north end of the racetrack.
Rob, you know, it's interesting how quickly it does happen. You run for an hour and a half, you stay together on the racetrack, and all of a sudden just a couple of minor situations at the crossover puts about a quarter of a lap difference between the first two leaders. And Rob, something else that I noticed when they get separated, and Arnold drives right into one of the competitors right in front of him. Luby Allen not going quite as quickly as Arnold wanted to do. Let's see if this damaged Wayne Arnold's car at all. You can see the front end of that race car, the bumper on Wayne Arnold's car has been bent up from the location that was originally arranged on that race car, but Arnold doesn't seem to have lost any momentum because of it. We had just begun to comment, Rob, that it seems like when they get separated, both of them drive considerably more hard than what they do when they're together. The guy up front realizing he has an opportunity to run away and hide, and the guy in the back, of course, and Arnold has gone into the pits.
Apparently the problem's serious. It looks like water or oil on the racetrack from one of the machines. We'd hate to conjecture that it's Wayne Arnold, but it looks like it very well could be. And now car number 0, Lonnie Breedlove, has had a problem. Gary Lee has gone to Wayne Arnold's pit. Gary, can you tell us anything?
Well, this obviously will totally change the complexion of this evening's competition as the car is overheating. That is a concern the crew had expressed earlier. They said if we can stay out there without the car overheating, we should be in good shape. We can race on the 7 cylinders. So right now they're trying to cool off the cooling system, put some more water in there, and now we can, Wayne has the helmet off. How's the body holding up? Oh, the body's okay. Car ain't looking too good right now. It appears that despite the overheating, you do have plenty of power to dice any time with Kenny St. John. Yeah, we're running okay, but I got a center shock broke or something other on it, and it's hopping bad when I go in. If I get in too hard, that's what happened to me down on the corner. Got the hop with me, it wouldn't stop. No, I don't know. Just had to hang in there. Okay, there you are. Going to hang in there. They're going to cool this car off. They're still working in the engine compartment. And as we had mentioned earlier, the reason that Bill Frazier was in to change the left rear tires, and we were checking on the condition of car number 5. That was Ray Bray's car. And apparently that car is finished for the evening with transmission problems. So right now, as the race continues, so does the work on car number 12. Rob?
Well, Rob, we find out that it wasn't the collision exactly that sidelined Wayne Arnold. They've been having a problem with the engine overheating prior to that little altercation. They also were having, Wayne was complaining about a bad ride problem. He had a shock going out, so after the collision, I guess Arnold decided it was time to just pull into the pit area and maybe check over the entire race car. They feel they're in a position certainly to come home in the top 5, but unless something happens to St. John, it looks like we may have a guy who's going to win his 4th national championship figure-8 race in a row, Rob.
Still very early, but at this point in time, there's no doubt that St. John is the favorite to do just that. A lot of other drivers who have something else in mind, and with so much race in front of us, still plenty of opportunity for St. John to have his share of the problem. Things have pretty well gone his way since very early in the race. Larry, it looks like, I can't tell whether he's got a right rear axle that's bent or perhaps just some dents in his right rear chrome wheel. But watch Kenny St. John's right rear of his automobile this time as he comes through the crossover after coming to an almost halt. There's something definitely going on there, perhaps just a bent right rear wheel and nothing seriously wrong with the axle. But he has been banged around just a bit in this one, as has car number 0. As we look at Lonnie Breedlove's car, the front bumper on that machine looks almost identical to the position in which Wayne Arnold's bumper was. So obviously number 0 has been using his front end for something other than simply braking the air.
Well, I'll tell you, Rob, in regards to St. John's race car, I think I'd think twice before I would present 4 chrome wheels to that crossover about 1,000 times in one 3-hour period. A lot of money out there in the Kenny St. John race car, certainly a car worthy of almost any late model race course in this country, and without a doubt a race car that is race worthy and competitively so, or would be competitively so in such organizations as the American Speed Association. Kenny St. John, the black, orange, silver, and yellow trim #1 race car, the Corvette stock car. We understand we have another report now from Gary Lee down in the pit area. Gary?
Well, right now, Gary Gross is still strapped in car 32. They broke a pipe off the header on the right side of the V8 engine, and right now the welder is down here tending to that, so we should see Gary Gross back on the track momentarily.
Marion Hester is one of the competitors who was added to this field very late in the going. He was not among our first 24 qualifiers. He too is having an overheating problem, something that we can expect a lot of here in the last 2 hours of this endurance contest. Donnie Garrigus suddenly makes a U-turn as we have gone red here at the Speedway. We have gone red once again, and most of the competitors, of course, head back to the pits to top off those fuel tanks again. Mike St. John, the younger driver of the man who has led most of this race, Kenny St. John, may not be back. He has been in the pits for about a half hour, and they were having a problem with the gas tank in the race car, and they were trying to reposition it and were not having much success in doing so. Also, just before this red flag, Wayne Arnold has presented himself once again trackside, and Arnold will be doing battle most assuredly with Kenny St. John, although now Arnold will labor at about a 10-lap deficit to the leader, Kenny St. John.